This segment of Delmarva Life is brought to you by Coastal Hospice and Palliative Care.
Supporting those nearing the end of life happens in a number of different ways. The spiritual care services team at Coastal Hospice is dedicated to those sacred needs for those in hospice and their families.
And the pandemic hasn't stopped any of that either. Let's head back now to the Mackey and Pam Stansel house with Delmarva Life's Katie Zarilli.
For many patients at Coastal Hospice, approaching the end of life is the beginning of some deeper questions for both them and their families.
They're thinking about meaning. What is it in their life that has really mattered? What has life counted for?
That's why offering spiritual counseling is crucial. Sharon Hutchison is the manager of spiritual care services. She says it's a special type of support provided by chaplains and spiritual counselors.
Having someone that will sit with them, be present with them, and just have the time and take the time to listen and explore that with them can provide a great deal of help in coming to a place of peace and acceptance.
She says this kind of service looks different for each patient and their loved ones, as it's very dependent on their wants and needs.
We'll pray with families, share scriptures, anointing, communion, those kinds of things, if that's what the family desires from us.
Being there with patients has certainly looked different in 2020 as they've had to resort to virtual meetings or phone calls. But Sharon says nothing would keep them from having these deep discussions.
In an aspect of this work where presence is such an important part, that took some work to get through that transition. But we did, and we found that we could, in fact, have very meaningful conversations.
As restrictions tighten up again, Sharon says they're ready to adapt.
I think we're better prepared to do that this time around.
They'll truly do whatever it takes because they believe this work matters intensely.
If a patient is struggling with spiritual issues, is struggling with unresolved conflicts in their life or a sense of meaninglessness, often the other avenues, the pharmacological avenues, won't be enough. So we need all of that to help them just work through the things that make a difference.
A difference not only for those getting ready to leave this earth, but also for their loved ones staying behind.
I think of the family that called me to come for a visit early in the journey, and were very honest and open about the fact that there was a lot of conflict. And the family member looked right at me and said, "I'm here to care for my family member, my parent, but don't think I'm going to forgive him for some of the horrible things that he's done in my life." And at the end of that journey, invited me to pray, and actually began to pray with me as I was praying at the bedside with tears streaming down her face. And I knew that though she never wanted to talk about that, I knew that some powerful things had happened for her.
They've got chaplains from a number of different denominations, but Sharon says more important than what these chaplains believe is what the patients believe.
The chaplain's role is about helping the patient and the family make connections with their faith tradition.
Spiritual counseling for the family members can help them while their loved one is still alive, but also after their loved one passes. Coastal Hospice also has a bereavement program that runs for a year after the loss. They're also able to hold funerals, and every year they invite folks to 4 remembrance ceremonies in each county they serve.
Anyone in attendance is invited to take a shell and write the name of their loved one on that shell and reflect about memories and experiences that they have shared. And then at an appropriate time, the shells are cast into the water.
A team of people dedicated to the needs of patients' hearts and the hearts of their loved ones.
For more information on all things Coastal Hospice or to see other conversations we've had with their team, head to delmarvalife.com.